Okay, we're good to go. So like I said, today we are here talking about online fundraising flexibility and strategic marketing coupled together to get the best, most powerful results. So quick agenda, just FYI, a few housekeeping items. The webinar will be recorded and you will be receiving a follow-up email that includes the slides and also a special tip sheet we put together. Today's all about successful email marketing and showing you how you can grow your database and get higher engagement using best practices and the Kimbia technology. So we're gonna walk through the power and challenges of email marketing, and Beth has some amazing tips on that. We will walk through some case studies. We'll talk about email marketing best practices in general, and also talk about some Kimbia technology that can help you really take your results to the next step. So then we will wrap it up with some Q&A at the end. So go ahead and start thinking about your questions, jotting them down as you got them, and then we'll open up the floor at the end for Q&A. So before we get going, we wanted to quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Taylor Shanklin, aka T-Shank, what my friends call me. I am a senior product marketing manager here at Kimbia. I've been working in the nonprofit technology space for just under a decade now. I have a particular affinity for peer-to-peer fundraising. So I'm sort of a self-proclaimed nonprofit tech nerd, writer. I drink way too much coffee, probably because I have a couple of kids, which also makes me drink way too much wine. So feel free to follow me on Twitter, Instagram at tshankcycles, and also check out what we're doing at kimbia.com. A little bit about Kimbia, a quick overview if you are familiar or not yet familiar with us. We specialize in online fundraising, and our online tools are really built around the principle of providing the best donor experience. We do that through general online fundraising forms, event registration, peer-to-peer events, and DIY fundraising, giving days, and also custom forms. So if you have a need for a form like a donor survey, things like that, you can build out any sort of form that you want to put up and get information from your donors on. We make online fundraising fast, flexible, effective, and secure. So our form technology is all embeddable into your existing website, so you don't have to learn a new content management system. We've got things like mobile responsive behavior straight out of the box, no extra coding, styling needed, or services. And we also support multiple currency, multiple payment options, multi-language, ACH, lots of stuff integrates with most CRM systems. Beth and I will be getting into talking about some of this technology a little bit later. I've got an item up here called Simple Pay, and we're going to be talking about that. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Beth for her to introduce herself.
Thanks, Taylor, and thanks to all of you who are attending. We are really grateful to have you with us this morning, or this afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Beth Hatcher. I'm the founder and principal of Beth Interactive. We're a digital marketing agency based out of Chicago. We love doing digital marketing. We love healthcare marketing, and most especially, we're passionate about building partnerships with our clients. Some of my passions outside of work include traveling, languages, cooking, wine, along with Taylor. And of course, I couldn't resist adding a photo of my 10-month-old little girl, Iris, who of course keeps me on my toes. We have more than 11 years experience working with hospitals, physician practices, healthcare, and fundraising organizations. Some of our specialties include online strategy, email marketing, e-fundraising, SEO, pretty much anything that is done on a digital platform we specialize in. Our strengths include a focus on your brand, your consumer experience, and measurable results with every project that we do. We really pride ourselves on exceptional project management, excellent copywriting, meticulous attention to detail, and very clear communication, because that's what we like from our vendors, so we really try to give that best experience to all of our clients. So to dive into today's webinar, online fundraising flexibility plus strategic email marketing equals powerful results. To give a bit of background on where we're coming from with this webinar, we are the digital marketing agency for the foundation of one of America's top 15 hospitals, according to U.S. News and World Report's Honor Roll. We provide digital marketing strategy, form creation, email marketing, and website management, not only for the foundation's external donor events and appeals, but also their internal employee campaigns. In addition, we also provide the same level of support for 15 of their affiliated organizations' events. And actually, our next webinar in part 2 of the series is going to cover how we do all of this work with a team of just 3 people. So stay tuned for the date and time of that coming up next. Since 2014, Kimbia has been the fundraising platform for all of our donation and registration forms, plus our peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns. And one of our main services that we provide is email marketing. So if you're attending this webinar, you know the power of email. You know it's an extremely flexible, terrific marketing tool to use. We design, write, code, optimize, and analyze email campaigns for pretty much every event that the foundation and its 15 affiliates run, which tends to be 75 to 100 events a year. The email campaigns that we run range in size from 1 to 5 emails to up to 16 emails for fundraising runs that span a number of months. So it gets to be some pretty rigorous campaigns. Email is also an extremely cost-effective marketing tool, and one of the things we really like about it is extremely robust tracking capabilities and analytics. Every time we send an email, within 48 to 72 hours, we provide an analytics report that goes into some really beneficial statistics: open rate, click-through rate, most popular clicks, heat mapping, which is what you'll see in the right-hand column. This is an example from our email marketing platform, Emma, of what the heat mapping looks like. The green circles show the saturation of clicks on images and different links that we've hyperlinked throughout the email. So it's a phenomenal way to show the psychology of the email audience. We, of course, also track bounces and opt-outs, and always try to provide some interpretations to our clients as well about what these numbers mean, and then how to push the following email in the campaign to keep improving the results. So one of the real benefits of email marketing is the statistics that you know with what a person is doing with that email in their inbox. But the real question is, what happens once they leave their inbox? What happens next? And that brings us to one of our real challenges with email marketing: is how do we track our success? We further break that down into 3 unique challenges. First of all, what happens when someone clicks from the email in their inbox to the website or forms? Are they completing it? How simple is that experience for them? What are they doing on the website? Another challenge we face with email marketing is, are our emails actually generating registration and donations? Because if they aren't, what can we be doing to make them more powerful? And thirdly, how do we keep improving subsequent emails in a campaign using the analytics? And so tackling these challenges is really the goal of this webinar. We're going to talk about how to integrate email marketing and online analytics with Kimbia to drive some phenomenal fundraising results. While we've tailored this presentation to healthcare and email fundraising, it really does apply to digital marketing across the board. And to get started, we're going to talk about 2 case studies that show our integration of email marketing with Kimbia. We're going to show you how to track direct conversions through the use of our Cancer Survivors Walk campaign. We're going to talk about how to use data to streamline the user experience through an internal workplace giving campaign. So let's get started on talking how to track direct conversions. Our first case study is focusing on the Cancer Survivors Celebration Walk and 5K. It's quite a mouthful. We got very good at typing it, for a cancer center in Chicago, one of the preeminent cancer centers in the nation. The Cancer Survivors Walk is the 23rd annual event. It's attended by 4,000 cancer survivors every year, but this actually was only the 2nd year that we had done a fundraising campaign affiliated with it. So our campaign included a microsite, and we used Kimbia to create all registration and donation forms, plus a robust peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. So again, this was just year 2 of us working with Kimbia on this fundraising component. From an email marketing strategy perspective, we crafted 13 emails to the audience over 4 months, and the goals of our campaign included generating event registrations predominantly, but also raising funds for cancer research. And in the right-hand column, you'll see 3 of the emails that we sent. They follow a pretty similar design, though we made sure to swap out photography in every case to keep the look looking very fresh. We included a little bit of information on the event, the date, time, location, a strong purple Register Now button, and then below that we included details about fundraising information to try to encourage people to donate and fundraise. In the right-hand column, we included registration buttons and donation buttons to really pop that out and make it very prominent. In terms of who we sent these emails to, we pulled a database of 50,000 people. It included the 4,000 previous registrants, but also a pretty massive database of cancer patients and donors. This is a really strong point to make for hospitals, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail about this, but due to some new HIPAA rules that came out, we're actually able to target anyone who has seen a cancer physician in the past, and that allowed us to really expand the database that we sent from the 4,000 people to 50,000 and start to get a wider outreach for this campaign. It's also important to note that there was no other external marketing that was done for this campaign, just our emails. So as we think through this campaign, one of our main challenges was how to track direct conversions as a result of our emails. And our solution to doing that is a two-part solution. First, we add Google Analytics, the Google Analytics code to each email of our campaign. And secondly, we use Kimbia's reporting tools to track direct conversions through their widget URL and referring URL columns in their database. So we're going to dive into each one of those steps. So adding a Google Analytics code, we can very easily add that code through our email marketing platform. As you can see in the right-hand column, in our case, it's as easy as entering a code and saving it, and that code then gets attached to every email that gets sent out to your audience. If your email marketing system doesn't do this, there is a workaround. It's quite complicated, but it's totally doable. So feel free to contact me if you want more information about that. What this code does is it allows Google Analytics to identify our email as a campaign, the same way it would an advertising campaign. And this gives us the ability to track what website traffic is generated as a result. So here's an example of what that looks like in a Google Analytics report. This is done for a different client, but it includes the campaigns in order of the sessions and the traffic they brought in, and you get to see the exact results that your email has put into place. So using this code, our emails have generated higher engagement than typical website traffic, including more pages per session. So in one case, we generated 5 pages per session as opposed to 1.8. So more than double the traffic came through as a result of our email. We've also seen longer visits come into place. Because of one email we sent, people stayed on the website for 5 minutes, whereas a normal visitor comes for 45 seconds. So this is really the power of that Google Analytics tool, is to show you how your emails are generating increased and longer-term engagement with your website as a result. The second part of the solution is how to use Kimbia's reporting tools to measure what's happening because of that code. So Kimbia tracks 2 clicks. One click is the widget URL, and that's the page on which the transaction was completed. The second click is the referring URL, the page that the person visited before that transaction page. And in the right-hand column, I have a screenshot. If you're using Kimbia, these are what the reporting tools look like. It's very easy to pop in those 2 columns within your reports to find that information. So ultimately, here's what it looks like. If anyone clicks on a link in our email, the Google Analytics code we added in the previous screen gets added to that URL. And we get to take credit for those transactions. So in that second screenshot, you'll see that I've highlighted in red that Google code that gets added to the widget URL or referring URL. If we see that code appear, we know that that person could only have come to the page and completed a transaction because of our email, and we get to track those as our direct conversions. So to give a little bit more real-life example of what this widget URL and referring URL means, here's an example of the 5th email that we sent in our series for the Cancer Survivors Walk. And let's say someone clicked on the donate button that I have highlighted here in the right-hand column. As you'd expect, if they click on it, it's going to take them to a donation page. And if they go through and complete that transaction on the Kimbia form, that's considered the widget URL. And so that's the one click we get to take credit for. Now looking at the referring URL click, let's say instead of the donate button, they clicked on the masthead. We coded the masthead to click through to the homepage of the event. Now if from there they clicked on the donation button and then went to the donation page, that gives us the 2 clicks that we still get to take credit for. The donation page is again considered the widget URL, but that referring page is the referring URL. And again, anyone who's coming to either of those pages only came because of our email, and we get to track them through Kimbia's reporting tools. So looking at the results of the campaign, an example of the 5th email that we just saw, the Cancer Survivors Walk email. It was sent on April Fool's Day to about 50,000 recipients. It promoted a ticket price increase in 24 hours. And you can see what that looked like in the right-hand column. Again, it followed our similar structure with a very strong button and encouraged people to register because early bird pricing was ending at the end of the day. The results that we saw were really phenomenal. 401 people, so about 10% of the total registrants, registered within 17 hours. And we actually saw nearly a 30% conversion rate. 30% of people who clicked on our email went ahead and registered, which is phenomenal. We also look at the difference between a mobile open rate and a desktop open rate to see who's opening the emails on their phones. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the importance of optimizing your emails for mobile responsiveness. So we saw that 61% of people who received the email opened it on their phone. However, only 28% of people who completed the form did so on their phone. So we noticed with these results a discrepancy between people who opened the phone on their phone and a smaller number of people who completed that transaction. And so looking at these analytics inspired us to improve the way this form functioned for mobile to try to increase that transaction rate. You can also see in the heat mapping to the right that, as we expected, that registration button had the biggest saturation of clicks as represented by that large green circle. We saw people click on a wide variety of different things within the email, but that registration button is really what hit the most. And so we're going to show another example of how we use data and heat mapping in these analytics to keep improving emails and improve their success. So the 7th email that we sent in the campaign was about a month later. It was sent to the same number of recipients, and for the first time ever, we included a list of fundraising teams and physician leaders. And that's what you see in that second screenshot in purple and blue. Purple are the physician names, blue is their team, their fundraising team. And the reason why this was a new thing, but particularly compelling, this cancer center has extremely involved physicians in their campaigns, and we wanted to highlight the physician leaders and their fundraising teams who were participating. And if you clicked on any of those links, you were going to go straight to their fundraising pages. So we gave it a shot, and what we found was that not only were our registration clicks strong, as would be expected, we saw a surge of interest to the fundraising pages. You can see in that heat mapping that there's just green buttons, there's clicks all over the doctors' names and their fundraising teams. So people were extremely interested to see who was participating and to learn more about it. As a result, donations because of this email increased tenfold, both in number of donations and dollar amount of donations. So we saw some really phenomenal results, and as a result to our client, recommended focusing on fundraising pages in the future, either pulling out through content, a fundraising team that was participating, or highlighting the reasons why people were walking to keep encouraging registrations and donations. So these are some phenomenal ways in which the analytics keep pushing things to the next level, but we can only track those analytics because of the reporting tools that Kimbia gives us. So as promised, we have 4 different email best practices to target before we hit our second case study. And the first best practice is, as we mentioned, optimizing for mobile. 56% of all emails are opened on smartphones, and it's a number that keeps growing. So it's extremely important to make sure that your email templates are mobile responsive. Responsiveness means that the content basically flows into a way that's visible on your phone. So if you imagine this email as it is right now, which is the desktop version on your phone, the copy is really small. It's going to be very difficult to see what's happening, and the button's going to be tough to click on. Whereas, if we make it mobile responsive, the content flows. So what's in the right-hand column comes underneath the content in the top, the font size increases to the width of your phone, the buttons are clickable, and everything's very easy to read and scroll. So obviously on your phone, you'd only see that top portion, but as people then scroll through the email, they get to see all the content in an easily digestible, easily clickable manner. A second email best practice is to design your buttons for fingertips. Buttons, as we've seen, have an extremely high click-through rate, and the actual scientifically proven ideal size for mobile buttons is 40 pixels squared, which is perfect for fingertips. So as you can see in that right-hand column image, that's a great image that's easy to click on with a finger. Third email best practice is testing really does make perfect. We implement a lot of different testing tools. Our email marketing platform allows us to do real-time subject line split testing. There's an example in the right-hand column. In our case, we can test up to 3 different subject lines, send out those 3 iterations in real time to our audience, see which one performs the best, and then send the winning subject line to the rest of the audience. So in this case, we tested 2 subject lines. Variation A had a 33% open rate. Version B had a 43% open rate. So simply by doing this subject line split testing, we saw a 9% increase in our open rates, and we're able to hit a wider audience as a result. We also recommend doing A/B testing, so basically splitting up your audience into 2 different versions and sending 2 types of email to them. It could be testing based on design or layout or button placement, but it's a great way to start to understand the psychology of your audience. Heat mapping, as we've seen, is another terrific testing tool, and segmentation of your audience is a really powerful tool as well. You can, in our email marketing program, we know the email of every person who's clicked on every link in every email. So if someone's expressed an interest in cancer versus cardiovascular care versus primary care, you can pull and call those emails and start to direct unique and brand-specific communications to them. And that principle applies across the board. So these are some phenomenal ways to keep pushing your emails to the next level. The fourth best practice, which we're going to get into a little bit more detail on, is how to grow your database. Building your database obviously is a critical tool to make sure you're reaching a large population. In general, you can email anyone who's interacted with your brand in the past 18 months. And this is actually an even more conservative interpretation of the Can-Spam Act of 2003, which creates some really particular rules that prevent people from spamming us basically all the time. So we try to follow that rule and follow the guidelines that our email marketing platform have applied for us, which make a lot of sense to us. And that includes their recommendation that you can, sorry, I'm just trying to click through here. It's not working as simply as I would have anticipated. Taylor, are you able to click to the next animation?
Yeah. Done? No, it's not. Sorry, is that one good, Beth?
That one's great. Now I've got it. Thank you.
Okay, you got it. Okay.
All right. So according to our email marketing platform, you are able to include people in your database who have either asked to receive emails from you or who have had a clear relationship with your organization in the past 18 months. Now, there really isn't a time frame according to the Can-Spam Act, but 18 months seems to make sense. If someone hasn't heard from you in a year and a half, the likelihood they're going to interact with your brand is pretty low. So we want to make sure that that data is fresh. So this is really our golden rule in terms of how you can pull emails into your database. For hospitals and from a healthcare perspective, the HIPAA ruling of January 2013 actually was groundbreaking in terms of allowing hospitals and healthcare organizations to use some PHI, protected health information, to target patients for some fundraising mailings. So you can actually target a patient based on his or her services or his or her physician's identity, and even further utilize physicians in making personal appeals to patients. So in the case of the Cancer Survivors Walk, we polled to expand our database to 50,000 people, any patient who had seen an oncology physician or received oncology services within the past number of years. We also were able to pull in anybody who had donated to a cancer organization previously. Now, while we're not able to know the person's diagnosis, that really allowed us to expand our database tremendously and start to target additional people who we wouldn't have had access to before. Now, as always, it's extremely important to review these rules of the HIPAA Fair Use Act along with the Can-Spam Act with your legal team. So we definitely recommend doing that as well. So thinking about some different channels where you can gather and help grow your email database apart from just the HIPAA information and patient health information, we recommend adding an email subscription pop-up or form to your website. You also can pull in information from every form on your website. So when I was the webmaster for a hospital in the Chicago area for 4 years, we were actually able to grow our database by 500 emails every month, from about 10,000 emails to 30,000 emails, as you'll see in the right-hand column, by coming up with a consistent process for gathering these emails and then doing it systematically throughout the course of the months. So we pulled in emails from contact us forms, job applications, bill pay, appointment requests, event and class registrations, and we're able to grow our email as a result. If you have Kimbia or another kind of fundraising transactional platform, you can pull in the donor, event, and transactional data from there as well. And also, if you have any in-person events, you can very simply add an iPad app or have some paper forms so people can submit their email address, and that's very easy to add into the database as well. Another best practice we want to highlight, it seems very simple, but bears repeating, make sure every form you have online captures an email address. That's the simplest way to make sure you have that data. Also, think about it as a quid pro quo. If you're giving something like a case study or a downloaded white paper or even a raffle prize as part of a survey, ask for the email in return. People will be glad to give it to you. If you prefer, if you're a little nervous about pulling that data in directly, you can always institute opt-in or opt-out questions. An opt-out-in question is as simple as, would you like to receive our monthly e-newsletter? And you can even set the default as yes or no, depending on your preference. An opt-out question would be a checkbox. I would not like to receive your monthly e-newsletter. And if someone checks that, it's obviously very important to make sure that you respect their preferences. So, wrapping up all those email best practices and thinking about our second case study, we've already seen how to track the conversions as a result of Kimbia and our Google Analytics code, but how can we use data to streamline the user experience? We're going to focus on an internal employee campaign for our client called the Workplace Giving Campaign. The Workplace Giving Campaign reached out to 20,000 employees across 4 hospitals and 3 geographic regions. It actually merged together 3 previous employee campaigns, and something unique about this campaign was it was the first time that employees at 2 of those hospitals had ever done digital fundraising. They'd only received paper forms, so this was the first time they were encountering online forms. We worked with the team to create a microsite with about 20 pages of content that also included 4 different sets of Kimbia forms based on separate audiences. Each set of forms included a payroll deduction, credit card donation, and PTO deduction, and our audiences included physicians, general staff, leadership, and executive leadership with different tiered giving levels in each indication. From an email strategy perspective, we crafted 5 emails over 4 weeks. You can see some examples in the right-hand column. Our goals included raising funds predominantly and growing the number of online donors, but also educating employees on why they should give. The giving opportunities included both internal hospital as well as external organizations like the American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, etc. So we used the content to really focus on engaging employees to take their participation to the next level. Each email had some similar composition. We had a letter from the president of the foundation. In the left-hand column, we had these bright blue participation buttons for payroll deduction, credit card deduction. We focused on quotes from employees. We had a progress meter on the bottom to get employees excited about the results and included lots of really great content on these different giving opportunities. We did face some extremely unique challenges with this campaign, though. One of them was a request by the foundation to make sure that every employee received the confirmation message from their Kimbia form at the correct email address. Now, the reason for this was 2 of those hospitals that had recently joined the group had merged previous to that, and the domain name of their email address had changed. And shockingly, a lot of the employees were misspelling the domain, or they were using the old domain address. So we found that there were lots of typos and just missed opportunities to get those confirmation messages to the employees. And if we didn't have this set up correctly in Kimbia, the foundation was going to have to follow up one by one with paper forms. So it was critical that we come up with a way for those email addresses to be entered accurately, which made us think of pre-filling the information. We wanted to pre-fill the employee information to streamline the responses so that once they went to the form, as you can see in the right-hand column, their first name, last name, and email address were pre-populated. All they had to do was add their phone number, enter their giving amount, answer another question or 2, and click submit. And our hope was for that the employees who had come to this campaign for the first time, our hope was that this would help to streamline the process and introduce them to that. But we needed to make that pre-fill technology happen. The third unique challenge we faced with this campaign was regarding an employee's business unit. And what we mean by that is which hospital that they worked at, or maybe which department of the hospital they worked at. From the organizational leadership, we were requested not to include a simple question that would say, which hospital do you work at? Because since all these hospitals had merged, they wanted to look like one big happy family from a branding perspective. However, for the gift processing team, they needed to know if someone designated their funds to the emergency department, which of 4 emergency departments is that? And since we were talking about an extremely high volume of transactions coming in, the data processing team wanted a way to know where to track those funds and how we can track participation by employee. So how do we use that question but hide it so no employee can ever see it? And we'll show you the really cool technology we use to make that happen. And finally, as you might imagine, and along the lines of what we've spoken about already, we wanted to make sure we tracked the conversions by group, by gift, and by email campaign, so we could look at the analytics and see how to improve things. So the solution to these challenges was 2-part. The first part, as I'm working to click through, was to leverage our email marketing platform's personalization tools. The second part was to use Kimbia's automatic data capture and hidden field capabilities. And we're going to look at both of those next. So how to personalize your employee data. Many email marketing tools allow you to create an unlimited number of contact fields within the database. So we added one called Business Unit. So of course we captured first name, last name, and email, and the business unit, and all of that data was provided by the HR team, so we knew that it was going to be accurate. The next step was to code dynamic personalization within every link on every email. It's tedious, but turned out to be worth it. So here's an example. The link here included some dynamic parameters, where E for email equals the member's email, first name equals their first name, name, etc. So this link, the way it's constructed, tells the database to dynamically pull in those tools once you're delivering the email into someone's inbox. And ultimately, it worked extremely well. Here's an example of an email that came to my inbox. It was personalized to my first name, but as I hovered over one of the links, here's the link URL that appeared. It's got my email, first name, last name, region or business unit, hospital 1 in place, and it also has that last component that I've highlighted, which is our Google Analytics code. So again, pulling that technology in as well, that allowed us to assess where this traffic was coming from. So ultimately, we were able to get the data to flow successfully from our email database to the employee's inbox and then get pushed to the form on the website. But the next step for pre-filling is to make sure that Kimbia's forms know what to do that data once they receive it. And that's where we get to the automatic data capture tools within Kimbia. I've attached a screenshot of this automatic data capture. You may have seen it if you use Kimbia within the Form Details tab and maybe not known what it meant. So this allows us to attach unique parameters. We created one for email, the first, last name, and the business unit, and it defines those data fields and then captures the data once it's provided. So when a user then clicks on our email's personalized links, like we just saw, that data follows, and based on what we entered into automatic data capture, pre-fills onto the Kimbia form, as you can see in that red box on the form. This worked really well for email, first name, last name, and it also worked for business unit. Now we chose within the data capture tools to hide that question. As you can see, Kimbia allows you to hide the question, and you can either restrict those fields from being modified by the user, or you can allow them to be modified. So if I wanted to change my first name to Elizabeth, I could. But you'll see that we hid that business question. It was nowhere to be found on the form for the strategic reasons that we discussed, but that data wasn't lost, and that's what's really important to remember. So showing the process of this data flow, just kind of reiterating how it all functioned. We started with the email database. We got the data from HR, and we entered it into our email database. That flows into the email inbox, which then your email is personalized both to the employee's first name and includes all of those unique personalized parameters that we looked at. Once someone clicks through, they go to the website. That data follows them there as well, along with the hidden business unit question, which is captured on the back end but not visible on the front end. And finally, we finish the cycle with the Kimbia registration form once it's complete. So once I completed my transaction, you can see in the back end of Kimbia that my first name, last name, email, and business unit was entered correctly, along with the web page that includes all of those parameters along with the Google Analytics code that we talked about. We performed extremely rigorous testing on this, as you might imagine. We wanted to make sure, for example, if someone was Bob Jr. or Bob Sr., that portion of the name along with that period came through. If someone's last name was hyphenated, we tested for that. If there was an accent in the last name, if there was an apostrophe, Jane O'Shaughnessy, we tested all of those as well. And believe it or not, it worked 100% of the time. And using the Google Analytics code, we were then able to track all of the activity that came as a direct result of our work. So this is personalization technology that we used for 20,000 employees to pre-fill their information. Kimbia actually has another step of sophistication that keeps enhancing the repeat experiences for donors. And I'm going to pass this over to Taylor, who's going to talk more about that technology.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. Great stuff. So that is a really good example of sourcing data and using data effectively to improve your experience with your supporters. I want to talk a little bit more in detail about pre-fill ID and how that can be beneficial. So Beth mentioned the pre-fill ID, and essentially what pre-fill ID in Kimbia does is it keeps things simple for returning supporters. So whether someone is returning to your site to register for an event for a second year, or returning to perhaps fill out a survey, or returning to donate again, and I'll go into that in a little bit. Essentially what we do with pre-fill ID is every interaction either a donor or an event participant, for example, takes with the Kimbia form, we take a snapshot of that interaction. We save the data, obviously, so you can report on it. And then we give a unique ID to each of those interactions. That way we can use that in the future. So if you're using and configuring your forms to use pre-fill ID, what you can do is essentially tack on previous data that we got from someone who interacted with one of your forms. Like I said, either via a donation form because they gave, or they registered for your event. Let's say, for example, you had a 2015 event and you're gearing up for your 2016 fall walk, for example. What you can do using email, marketing best practices, and pre-fill ID information is you can tack on this Kimbia pre-fill ID tag on to links you send out in emails. Then when that person gets the email saying, hey, our walk registration is open for 2016, go register, they click on that and it pre-populates their information that we already have on file for them. So it just takes away some of the extra steps that people have to do. So, you know, their name, their email address, common questions you might ask them, you know, like, why are you interested in our cause? Things like that you can save, you can pre-populate it for them. And again, it just makes the whole process much more streamlined and easier to get them to complete that registration process, for example. Now, what's really cool is we've taken a step further with payments as well. So Simple Pay is a product that uses the Kimbia pre-fill ID technology, and it takes it to the donation. I like to refer to Simple Pay as the Amazon one-click of the charitable world. You may or may not have used Amazon one-click before. I do. I'm an avid Amazon Prime customer. I order lots of stuff on Amazon, and I love the one-click because it makes it really easy for me to get on there and click, yep, purchase this. It knows my information. It's all held securely, and I can move on with my day on to the next thing. That is what we do with Simple Pay. Clients who use Simple Pay see huge conversion rates in donations. 30+% is an average conversion rate we'll see when they use Simple Pay technology and send appeals to repeat donors. I will say a couple of things about this. It does work only for repeat donors. So when you send it to someone who has not given before, we obviously, no credit payment gateway information is saved or anything like that. So you do, it does work for recurring donations. So it's great for sustaining programs. It's fantastic for repeat donors. But essentially, you can see here with my screenshot, it takes the donation form down to just a few quick steps. You enter in the amount, you confirm, yes, this is the credit card I want, and you do have to put in your zip code as a verification step. I will also say all of the secure payment information is only held with your payment gateway. So it's completely secure. It's not being passed around via the forms or anything like that. All right, that is it. Back to you, Beth.
Thanks, Taylor. So we have just a few more slides, and then we're going to open this up to a Q&A, but we wanted to share the results with you of this campaign. So we did all of this crazy personalization, we pre-filled information, we hid the business unit question. How did we do? We actually exceeded our campaign goal by 39%, topping 7 figures, and the money is still coming in. Our emails generated nearly 800 gifts, which was 61% of every gift that was made online came as a direct result of our emails. Our emails also generated the majority of all website traffic. You can see the screenshot in the bottom. Those are the dates of the 4 emails that we sent, and we saw clear spikes from employee engagement once they received those emails and wanted to learn more. From all that crazy technology we did, that pre-filled data streamlined the user experience tremendously, and we actually didn't have a single error or a single complaint. And for those of you who have done employee campaigns know that is quite an accomplishment. We were really, really happy with that. Every email address was entered in accurately because of that pre-filled technology. Confirmation messages were received, and the hidden business unit question helped our gift processing team immensely, knowing where to direct those funds and how to track participation. So all in all, it was a tremendous success. We just have one more example to show you of how we use analytics to keep improving our emails. And in this case, it's a way in which our analytics actually increase the amount of donations that we received. So using all the data we had available to us through Kimbia, our team calculated the average online gift based on the type of gift, a payroll, credit card, or PTO deduction. We realized that our payroll deductions that employees were making were 3 to 6 times higher than credit card and PTO gifts, which led us to encourage our client in one of the final emails we sent, you can see in the right-hand column, to focus on the power of payroll. We put in a section that talked specifically about the incredible impact that payroll can make in an attempt to encourage additional gifts of the payroll variety. And we saw tremendous success with this approach. Donations surged, and response from this specific email surpassed those from all of our previous emails. Furthermore, 26% of all of our online payroll deductions were made within the 2 days after receiving this email. So some really phenomenal ways that analytics can keep pushing email marketing, keep pushing your donation efforts, and taking things to the next level. We'll share 3 more email best practice tips for you. So the next one is talking about refreshing the downstream conversions. So the conversions that we talked about that come through as a direct result of your email, it's important to keep refreshing those. So for our clients, we typically pull the email results 2 to 3 business days after sending, but every time we send a subsequent email campaign, we keep updating our conversions. The reason why is it's amazing. People will tuck those emails away and keep referencing them over the course of days and weeks and continue making donations that you get to take credit for. So here's an example from the first email of our Workplace Giving campaign. 2 days after sending the email, we saw 100 payroll deductions, nearly 30 credit card gifts, and 10 PTO deductions. 2 weeks later, we saw 134 payroll deductions, 40 credit card gifts, and almost 15 PTO deductions, which is an increase of 30 to 40% in each one of these scenarios. And if we hadn't re-pulled the conversions, we wouldn't get to take credit for that extra boost of ROI. So that's a really great best practice to keep in mind. And the last 2 little tidbits that we'll leave you with is to watch your opt-out rate. A lot of our clients ask, how do we make sure we're not emailing people too much, that we're not inundating them, that we're not irritating them? And our rule of thumb after doing this for 10 years is to watch your opt-out rate. If your opt-out rate exceeds 1%, you're probably emailing people too often. But truthfully, we've sent probably thousands of emails in the past few years. Ours has never even reached 2%. So it's extremely important to look at how your content gets pulled into place and how your database is being pulled. But if you do everything right, you're really going to be in good shape with your audience. The final best practice we'll leave you with is an interesting one. We encourage you to clean up the email data before you upload it into your database. It's kind of amazing, but people mistype their emails. It actually makes perfect sense once you think about it. And we've included a screenshot here of a list that we uploaded last week with misspelled domain names. Ameritech.net, if you see it with ameritech.net, it's very clear to know that that email address needs to be fixed, that domain name needs to be fixed. Same thing with Earthlink, same thing with Gmail. So it's a cumbersome process, but really worthwhile. If you just take a look at your email data and clean it up before you upload it, it's really going to help improve your deliverability down the road. So to recap where we're at with this webinar, we wanted to give you some ideas of how to use email analytics and your online fundraising platform to keep pushing your fundraising results, and we hope you walked away with some tremendous tools of how to do so. If you have any questions about how to improve your email marketing, leverage some of this technology, or work within Kimbia, don't hesitate to give Taylor or I a call or an email. We're always eager to hear from you. And Taylor's going to send the slides of this presentation, the recorded webinar, and a best practices tip sheet shortly after this, excuse me. But also feel free to join us for the second webinar in this series on August 21st, 15 nonprofits, 1 platform, 3 people, unique fundraising made uniquely easy, where we'll join you again and talk about how our small team has been able to manage a tremendous amount of work using Kimbia and some really terrific resources on our own end.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. Thank you so much for sharing all of your amazing tips today and those case studies. Really, really good stuff. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for questions. I have just a couple questions that came in that I wanted to ask of Beth. And the first question is, I'm new to Google Analytics. I don't have it, and I would like to get it set up. Do you have any pointers for a newbie, for a beginner on Google Analytics?
Sure. Adding Google Analytics to your website is actually a pretty easy process. Google Analytics is a free tool and makes it very easy for you to create that code that you then add to the header of every page on your website. So it actually can be as simple as about a 30-minute setup process. The results start coming in through in real time as well, which is great. In terms of adding Google Analytics to your email marketing platform, it does depend on your provider. So if there's not an easy solution and you want to know that funky workaround I talked about, definitely reach out and I'll be happy to walk you through it.
Awesome. Cool. And just FYI for everyone, if you do have a question, you can type it into the question section and it'll come through to me. I have one more question that was submitted to us, and it is, Beth, do you have any recommendations for running A/B tests in terms of how often we should do this? Should we do it with every single email that we send?
That's a really good question. I would actually recommend using it at some sort of key critical juncture points in your campaign. If you're starting with a design in the first place and you're debating between 2 different iterations, maybe single column versus double columns, big imagery versus small imagery, that could be a really good point to do some A/B testing, split your list in 2 and see the results. But also if you feel like you're having a good approach, but a few emails down the road you're starting to think, is this really working the way I want it to? The benefit of doing A/B testing a little bit later in your campaign is you have a baseline of results for your audience. Email analytics is all about trending. The actual numbers can be important, but seeing how they change, how they rise and fall based on different strategic decisions is what's really critical. So doing A/B testing a little bit further down the road could be really beneficial to try to, tweak your algorithm a little bit later. I do think, if you had time and unlimited resources, it'd be phenomenal to keep testing every time, but for a lot of our teams, we have to work on tight deadlines. So I think, once or twice over the course of a campaign is terrific and perfectly appropriate, but more than that might get to be a little intense for your team.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we have another question that came in from Natalie. With your subject line testing, did you find there were any consistent takeaway tips you could share? For example, 20 characters long, question marks, etc.
That's a terrific question. I would say, so subject lines, the shorter the better, and if you're going to give if you have a point that you want to get across, it's beneficial to put it up in the front of the subject line, because as we know, your subject lines get cut off pretty quickly. I would say the subject line testing actually varies pretty wildly based on audience. For this client that we did it for, we were testing a design event. They were at the Chicago Botanic Garden and presenting some of their designs for it. So one of the subject lines was April 14th through 19th, join us at the Chicago Botanic Garden. Pretty straightforward. It said exactly what the content of the email was about. The second and winning subject line said, you'll find us in the garden. Because we found with this audience, they wanted something quippy, clever, a little bit veiled, and that got them really excited to open the email and find out more. So I think that's really the power of testing, Natalie, is to do it with your audience and see what works best. If it's saying last chance at the beginning of the subject line versus putting it at the end of the subject line, or 14 hours left, you won't know unless if you do the subject line testing. So playing around with those things is really what helps you find out what's best for your audience and your unique portfolio.
Yep, totally agree. Good advice. Good advice, Beth. All right. Well, I don't have any other questions. I do have someone who typed in and said he would like help with Google. So we will have Beth get in touch with you. And again, look for a follow-up email with the recording and slides and our infographic tip sheet. And then we will also be sending out an email inviting you to that next round 2 with Beth and the team here at Kimbia. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time today.